Hello, in this video I'm going to go over some viewport stuff. So the viewport is, just as a reminder, the screen or the portion of Maya where you look into the world where your models are. Yeah, so the first thing, so right above the viewport there's usually this line of different buttons that you can pick. Depending on your version, you might not have this stuff here. Newer versions, they've added this Arnold rendering stuff, and this is like viewport rendering kind of stuff that you can play with. It will come out black unless you put in lights, just FYI, and you probably shouldn't be messing with this if you've just started. Then this is select camera, so if you want to see, it's a quick way to select your camera. You can also select it in the outliner. It does the same thing, but it's just a quick little. This will lock your camera, so if you select that, you can't move your camera. So if that's something to check if you can't move. This is your camera attributes. So you should be able to double click that, and your attribute editor of your camera will be here. And you can do bookmarks, save positions, that kind of stuff. And then these things are a little more advanced. There's a ways to write on your screen. This is 2D pan zoom, so you can get into that to do that kind of stuff. If you go to view, let's see, camera tools, 2D pan tools. So if you want to zoom in without going in, so your perspective isn't changing, you're like looking at the pixels of the object, then not going closer to the object, then that's what you would do. But most of the time you won't need to use this. This is a way to turn that off and on, basically, your 2D pan settings. Then we go over here. This is the grid. Just a way that you can easily see where the center of your world is. Here's the film gate. This is the resolution gate. I use this a lot when I am figuring out my cameras, because this is the resolution of your camera that you set up in render settings. This will put it just makes it more pronounced, so that you know sometimes, so that you're framing a little bit better or easier. And then this puts this field chart on it. Safe action, so generally you want to keep your action within, not outside of this line. And then safe title, so same kind of thing. I'm gonna put your title here. I would probably put most of your action right here too. All right, so these ones here after this line, so if you're not seeing things, there's these little lines pop out your different tools. So you're like, if you're not seeing everything, it's either that you're on a older Maya that doesn't have like these settings. I think, if I remember correctly, everything else should be there. There might be some extra additions, but this will just do a shaded mode, and you can hover over it. Smooth shade all. This is wireframe, so if you just want to see through the object, you can do that. If you want to see it shaded, press that one. If you have a material on this and it's bothering you, you can press this button, and that will give it a default gray shaded look. So if you're wondering why your materials are not showing up on your screen, or you're changing color, this might be the culprit. You can hover over it, says use default. You can also, if you're not seeing a pop-up, look at the bottom left of Maya, and it will give a little description what you're hovering over. So this is turn that off. And see how I can combine these things where it makes sense. So that would get rid of any kind of material stuff and make it so that I can see smooth shaded with topology scene. So you can look over here, wireframe on shaded. I use this quite a bit, And then there's textures. If I had textures on here, you'd see them. And then this is to have viewport lighting. I don't have any lights in here, so that's why it's black. I'm going to turn this off. This. Okay. And then this is it's ambient occlusion, I believe. Yeah, ambient occlusion. And then this is motion blur. Generally, I stay away from the motion blur. You can try it out, but sometimes I'll use ambient occlusion to see details better. Ambient occlusion basically puts fake shadows in crevices, so you can kind of see where it gets dark. And I can turn it off and on. So if you're having a hard time seeing your details, that might be a good option. And then this is anti-aliasing, multi-sample anti-aliasing. So I can click on this. And your screen, your viewing of your model should be a little bit smoother, less alias. Like there should be less jagginess looking to it. If I click on this, you can really see it when you do viewport. Viewports, what is this called? Wireframe shaded. So if I click on this, you'll see, especially on these glancing angles, they smooth out quite a bit. So this is probably one of my favorite. I'll create cube. Say you have things that are like really tight and you have a bunch of stuff in your scene. You're like, this is really hard to model inside this object and it's kind of annoying to work with. What you can do is use this thing right here. Isolate select. So whatever I'm selecting will isolate it. So that is one of my favorite features. And here's X-ray. So that gives you kind of a transparent view of your objects, which can be useful sometimes. This is X-ray active components. And then this is X-ray joints for when you're doing rigging. Yeah, so let's delete this. So another viewport thing is using different cameras. So what you can do is hit space, just tap it, and you'll get this 4-point view of your scene. So if you look over on the bottom, it says top Y, front Z, side X. So just remember to hit Alt and middle mouse to pan these around like that, like that. And if you want to focus in on one, you can hit space. So say I want to focus on side, I focused in on it. I can hit space again to get back to here. You can also set this up to have two by just pulling this down. And then you are like, I don't really need to see the other ones, but I really like having the top and this perspective going at the same time. So you can be precise in whatever task you're doing. I can then go over, say you're in a situation where it doesn't look right, you don't like your setup. You can go back over here. This is clicking on that will go to perspective. Clicking on that will go back to the panels. And then this is this layout. So, all right. Another thing for the outliner, if you click this, that displays this. Also, if you click this, it hides these. So if you're wondering why your screen is not looking correct, you might just forget, or you might have accidentally clicked on this. Then over here is selection. It's like a circle select, or like very rarely does this I use this, but sometimes it can be useful to do something like that to select faster. This is like a paint. You use this if you have a really dense piece of geometry to paint, or like paint select your vertices or edges or faces. And then here is the move, translate, rotate. So I'm gonna go back to that. Yeah, so even just as a disclaimer, so you like this, each one of these now has all the same settings as the perspective. So you can go in here and say you like this in the way it is, but you want this one to be see-through or x-ray, you might not be able to get to those options. So you just have to slide this over and click that. You can also go over here into shading, and a lot of those things are already in here, so you can do that kind of thing. Another thing in here is in here, in the viewport, you can say that you only want certain things. So you could say none. Say like you had a bunch of like joints and different things like that, or like curves, and it's kind of cluttering your scene, but you only want to see the geometry. Or you only want to select the geometry. You can just go over here and say none, show, viewport, and go and find polygons. So this is curves and surfaces, and we do that. And so now all my other stuff is gone, which is nice. But just be aware that you have to go back all, and I don't have really any other kind of stuff, but you can check here. So if you're having a hard time finding your stuff, just make sure that that option exists, and make sure that your viewport, you're seeing things. The thing that I use quite a bit now, because I have more screens, is I'll do something like this where I tear off a copy of maybe the perspective or my side panels, side or top, or any of those orthographics. I'll do a tear off copy, and I'll put this over on another screen while I'm working, and that is really useful. You'll notice when you do this that your screen won't match up at the same speed. It will update once you've moved it in one screen. So if you are animating or anything like that, you have to set, or if it just bothers you, you have to set a setting in here. So if you go down here to this little gear, animation preferences, you click on this. So the place to set that so this updates on all your viewports is going to time slider, and then setting this to all, and hit save. So now if I go over here and tear off a copy, let's see this, and see if I can move it there, and then something like this. Then if I move this, both are moving at the same time, instead of it updating after I've let go of the mouse. So that's really useful when modeling and when we are going to be doing animation. All right, thanks.